What's up, guys? We're back with another episode. Today we'll just be having an interview with the star of the last episode from REST APIs. We have Alexander Coswald. Um, he has a plethora of achievements, having worked for Apple, Google, Microsoft, Inchcoda, and many other companies. So I guess just get started with, for those of you that don't know on the podcast here, what is your background, Alexander?
Right. So first off, Wilson, thank you so much for having me on the pod show.
My pleasure.
Right. So I guess to starters, if you're curious about any of these things, you can go look them up on my Wikipedia page. But yeah, so I think like I mentioned last time, I started out growing up in South Wales, which was an interesting experience to say the least. And then I ended up going to uni there at the University of South Atlantic Wales Eastern College. And so when I was there, I didn't really know where I wanted to be in life. So I got, obviously, of course, a business degree, so I didn't have to do anything, And then, I worked for about 27 years in the financial market sector. Then I guess I decided, I want to do something a bit more technical, a bit more creative, really get the intellectual juices flowing. So I went back to the University of Eastern California for a PhD in advanced microscripting. And a bunch of stuff has happened since then. I've worked for a lot of different companies, and I'm primarily a specialist in APIs, specifically the RESted APIs. I got a lot of different projects. You can check out my GitHub at Parajalmer.
So I really just want to dive in with this interview. What got you into front-end frameworks such as React, Angular, Vue, Flutter, frameworks like these? What is your favorite part about them, and why do you like to work with them so much as opposed to just plain vanilla JavaScript?
Right. So that's a great question. I think the problem with vanilla JavaScript is, like you said, it doesn't really have any taste. It's kind of just typical JS. It's boring. So I actually started out. I was working in a variety of different languages, but actually in C++, doing partial stochastic differential operations for Apple, and so part of that was we were making a web app so that researchers could visualize the effects of their of different temporal quantifications in the complex hybrid space. So I actually building that UI and trying to make it useful for these guys so they can really get the results that they're looking for from the get-go, or just immediately kind of anticipate what they wanted before they even knew they wanted it. That was awesome to me. I really, really enjoyed that. So I ended up branching out a bit more into the front end and out of the scientific realm. And the rest is history, as they say.
Beautiful. With modern advancements with these front-end frameworks, what do you think of React hooks? Do you like them, or do you like React hooks? Do you like class-based components? What do you like better?
So I actually prefer class-based components. React hooks is, I don't know, it's just not really my mojo, Plus the guy that made it's kind of a dick, but that's neither here nor here. So class-based components, really just returning components to different scripted objects. It just adds a lot of flexibility. You kind of just have things right there when you need them. It's very intuitive. You don't have to really. There's a lower barrier to entry with it. So I think to any developer, definitely class components, I think, would be the
Amazing. And currently, what back-end technologies are you using besides the obvious?
Yeah, so of course, besides the obvious like Angular and package.json, yeah, so I actually really like Mongoose, and it actually there's a kind of a branch off of Mongoose called Coyote, and there's another one called Chupacabra, which is really just revolutionary stuff. So I actually use those, and the combination of those with object-oriented paradigms, and yeah, and so you can do some really amazing things with those. I've actually built a quantum neural red architecture, which I'm not sure if viewers will be familiar with, but you can look up. Parrot Jalmar actually has a tremendous tutorial on it. So I would check that out on YouTube. But yeah. So you get just so much flexibility, so much power with Mongoose in particular. Chupacabra, you can actually create these things called subwoof elements, which are kind of like components, except not really. And then you can stack those in a scripted array of mouse pads, which is a different kind of. It's a whole new way of thinking about programming. So it's absolutely incredible. Yeah, and then Mongoose in particular also has another component called a blue vase, which is I don't even know where to begin with it. Honestly, there's so much that you can do with it. It just has so much power. I've seen Wonder Kids type semi-RESTful JSON APIs in 3 lines of code using Mongoose. Just import Mongoose, and then you just have to set the components to whatever schematic that you want, seed your chords, and then you're good to go. So it's really just brilliant stuff coming out of the labs in the East India. That's where Mongoose and Chupacabra was developed. Coyote was actually developed in Bangladesh, believe it or not. But yeah, so I think that answered the question.
That answered it and much more. Thank you. Love to talk about, if you're willing to speak about it, how you got your Statico library started and what it does. I use it almost every day now for React, Node, full stack. I'm using your library. I just want to know what sparked the idea, because I would have never had that idea, and how do you use it day to day?
Right. Well, I'm really glad that you asked that, and I'm really glad to hear that you use it. Seeing somebody get benefit from your work is it's an indescribable feeling. Right. So Statica actually, it's funny. It actually originated as just a way of combining bipedal mirrors. There wasn't really a good library for it in existence, so we figured, let's put something together. And so it really just started out as
What is a bipedal mirror for somebody that's just listening, that doesn't do this?
Right. So bipedal mirror is a combination of a subwoof, an element, and a leaflet. So it's kind of just a higher level stacking of different types of things, so that you don't have to worry about passing variables from different windows and different pages. So it just kind of has everything in one big pot. So that's a bipedal mirror. And so really, to be able to develop effectively and with a lot of agility, you need to have a good overarching superstructure, I guess, of your the bipedal mirror elements. And so Statica actually was originally invented as a way of just combining those, and I think, as Wilson mentioned, it was it kind of revolutionized the front end programming. So I wish I could take the credit for that, but that was really my friend Jerry Springer. He's not the talk show host, but he's a very significant programmer. He actually worked for Indigo for many years. I'm sure everyone's heard of Indigo. Yeah, he's a lead software engineer there, and he was me and him actually were having coffee in a hookah bar, which I didn't know they served coffee, but it was a hookah bar in Finland, which is a strange place for a hookah bar. I know, don't get me started. It was a crazy trip. But yeah, we were having coffee there after a really hardcore ayahuasca trip, and Yeah, and so we kind of I don't know if maybe some sort of spiritual connection between us while we were indulging in the bounty of Mother Earth. I don't know what there is. I think there's some crazy connection out there. But for some reason, both our minds just drifted towards bipedal mirrors and just a good way to connect them. I think it was just our work was so dependent on them, and we needed a way to put them together. So yeah, and then we were having coffee after that, and then yeah, the idea just kind of came from nowhere. I don't know if it was him or me, probably me, that came up with it first. And then the rest is history.
Beautiful. With the rise of GraphQL, do you think that REST will be outdated? If so, why or why not? And in addition, are you using GraphQL in your stack, such as new technologies such as GraphQL API and other new technologies with GraphQL? Thank you.
Right. Don't get me started on GraphQL. My goodness, what a freaking farce. Honestly, anybody who's told you, oh, GraphQL is the next revolution, you know, it's the next pandas, they're just an idiot. They should just no, don't even. GraphQL originally came about as a way of kind of subverting the subwolf element paradigm, and then kind of just building everything around the same concept as your standard leaflet. So they basically said, okay, well, let's just take this idea of a leaflet and just blow it up to the extreme. And they thought they were being revolutionary, but what happened was back in actually the early 2000s, researchers at the Boston Institute of Technology had already come up with a similar concept, and they tried to launch it, and then developers immediately realized, okay, this is just not useful. So Mongoose is a much better approach. Bipedal mirrors, Easter stacks, and nylon. Honestly, I think nylon also, if you're looking for something that can kind of feed in and works really well with Mongoose, Coyote, and Chupacabra, I think nylon is another excellent library. GraphQL is for scrubberies or scrubs.
Wow, extremely controversial opinion, but very well said, and I can't help but agree. To wrap things up, what advice would you give to somebody who is either starting to use Statica, starting to use a front-end framework, such as React, Vue, or Angular, or anybody that's just looking to get into full-stack development?
Right, so I'm glad you asked. First off, don't give up. You can do this. I'm a huge advocate of the theory before practice approach. I think that every high-level practitioner in every major skill understood extremely high-level theory before they tried to put it into practice, and then that just made their trip and their submergence into the world of creation much smoother and much more effective. So yeah, first off, learn Mongoose. I know I'm beating it to death. Learn Mongoose, learn Coyote. Get a good grasp of bipedal mirrors because they're so just fundamental to everything that you're gonna do as a full stack developer. Yeah, and then get into Statica and see how Statica can make your life easy. But if you cannot build a bipedal mirror from scratch, and you cannot build a subwolf element and a leaflet from scratch, then honestly, you're not going to be effective in the field. So learn those fundamental skills first, all right? Understand Stokesian graphing. It's really